Welcome back to Story Panel Channel, where today we are diving into an epic tale of reincarnation, forgotten legends, and a power so terrifying that a single glance can rewrite reality. Imagine being the most feared sorcerer in history, a man whose very presence commanded the elements. Only to close your eyes in death and open them 2 centuries later in a world that has completely forgotten who you are. But more importantly, a world that has grown soft, arrogant, and dangerously reliant on weak technology to mimic the raw power you once held in your gaze. This is the story of a legend reborn, a boy who was once a god among men. Now forced to attend an academy of mediocre mages who have no idea that the weak student in the back of the class is a ticking time bomb of ancient destruction. In an era lost to the scrolls of history, there lived a man named Renjiro Kusanagi. He was known as the Sage of the Abyssal Gaze. In those days, the world was a battlefield of raw mana, where monsters the size of mountains roamed the plains. And kingdoms rose and fell on the strength of their ocular prowess. Renjiro was the pinnacle of this era. His eyes, the legendary eyes of infinite causality, allowed him to see the threats of fate itself. He didn't just cast spells. He looked at a fire and commanded it to go out. He looked at a mountain and commanded it to crumble. He was the ultimate deterrent. The man who brought peace to the warring states by sheer, overwhelming intimidation. However, even the strongest flame eventually flickers out. After centuries of protecting humanity, Renjiro felt his life force waning. Surrounded by his disciples, he chose to seal his soul, hoping that if the world ever truly needed him again, he would return. He expected to wake up to a world of advanced magic, perhaps a utopia of spiritual enlightenment. He was wrong. When his eyes finally snapped open again, the air felt thin, devoid of the rich, heavy mana he was used to. He wasn't in a majestic temple or a sacred tomb. Instead, he found himself lying in a small, cramped bedroom filled with strange, glowing glass panels and humming metal boxes. Looking into a mirror, he didn't see the scarred, battle-hardened face of the sage. Instead, he saw a slender, somewhat frail-looking 16-year-old boy with messy black hair and deep, dark eyes that looked deceptively ordinary. This was Kaito Arisawa, the youngest son of a noble family that had fallen into obscurity. Through a flood of fragmented memories, Renjiro, now Kaito, realized he had been reborn 200 years into the future. But this wasn't the future he envisioned. In this new age, the eyes that used to define power had become nothing more than myths. Modern society had turned to manatech, mechanical gauntlets, and synthetic lenses that allowed people to perform basic magic without any actual spiritual discipline. To Kaito, it looked like children playing with toys. The Arisawa family, once proud descendants of a minor branch of his own lineage, were now mocked as the blind nobles because they hadn't manifested any significant ocular abilities in generations. Kaito himself was considered the worst of the lot, a shut-in with low mana reserves and zero talent for manatech. The setting for our story begins at the Royal Zenith Academy, the most prestigious institution in the world, where the elite gather to hone their modern magic. As Kaito walks through the massive iron gates of the academy for his first day, the atmosphere is thick with condensation and the smell of ozone from the thousands of technological devices buzzing around. Students fly on hover discs, and artificial spirits serve as campus security. To everyone else, it's a marvel of progress. To Kaito, it's a playground of fools. "Look at that," a voice sneers, breaking Kaito's train of thought. He turns to see a group of students, led by a tall, blonde boy named Ryuji, whose eyes glow with a faint, artificial blue light. the result of expensive Aether Drop eye implants.
If it isn't the failure of the Arisawa family, tell me, Kaito, did you bring your glasses today, or are you planning on tripping over your own feet again?
The group laughs, but Kaito simply stares at them. In his mind, he is seeing something they can't even comprehend. He isn't looking at their faces, he's looking at the flow of their mana. He sees the clunky, inefficient way their implants are sucking energy from their bodies. He sees the knots in their magical circuits that will eventually cause them pain in their 30s. To him, Ryuji isn't a bully, he's a malfunctioning machine.
Your left implant is leaking, Kaito says calmly, his voice carrying a weight that doesn't match his youthful appearance.
If you keep channeling mana into it at that rate, the feedback loop will shatter your ocular nerves within the next 10 minutes. I'd suggest turning it off. The laughter stops for a second, replaced by confused irritation. Ryuji's face turns bright red. What did you just say to me? You, a zero-talent commoner, are trying to give me advice on high-grade tech? My family spent 10 million credits on these lenses. They are perfect. Ryuji steps forward, charging his gauntlet with a burst of flame magic, intending to scare the delusional boy. But Kaito doesn't flinch. He doesn't even take a defensive stance. He simply blinks. For a split second, the deep black of his pupils shifts into a swirling, kaleidoscopic violet. It's so fast that no one notices, but the effect is instantaneous. The flame in Ryuji's hand doesn't just go out, it reverses. The heat vanishes, replaced by a sudden, biting chill that frosts over Ryuji's expensive gauntlet, causing the metal to crack and the mana core to hiss into silence. What did you do? Ryuji stammers, clutching his dead gauntlet. I didn't do anything, Kaito replies, walking past them without a second glance. The world simply corrected itself. Fire doesn't belong in the hands of someone who doesn't understand the wind. This interaction is just the beginning. As Kaito enters the main hall for the opening ceremony, he realizes the scale of the rot in this era. The headmaster, a man named Haruki Sato, stands on a podium, boasting about the Academy's new mana measurement obelisk. A monolithic crystal that can supposedly gauge the absolute limit of a student's potential. In the old days, a mage's potential was determined by the depth of their soul. Now it's measured by how much fuel they can pump into a rock. One by one, students go up and touch the crystal. It glows with various colors: green for commoners, blue for elites, and the rare gold for the top-tier prodigies. When Ryuji goes up, having swapped his broken gauntlet for a spare, the crystal glows a bright, vibrating blue. The crowd cheers. He is the standard of the new age. Then the proctor calls out the name that everyone has been waiting to laugh at. Kaito Arisawa. Please step forward for evaluation. A hush falls over the hall. The whispers are venomous. The blind noble, they call him. The boy with the dead eyes. Kaito walks up the steps, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. He looks at the massive obelisk. To everyone else, it's a sacred artifact. To Kaito, it's a fragile toy. He knows that if he truly pours his mana into this thing, the entire mountain the Academy sits on might cease to exist. He needs to hold back. He needs to be careful. He reaches out his hand, but he doesn't even touch the surface. He stops an inch away. He doesn't want to use his hands. He wants to use his eyes. He focuses his gaze on the core of the crystal, searching for the thread of its existence. He finds it, a tiny, flickering spark of ancient energy, trapped inside the synthetic casing. "Wake up," Kaito whispers under his breath. Suddenly, the obelisk doesn't just glow, it screams. A high-pitched, crystalline frequency shatters the windows of the grand hall. The blue light of the elites is instantly swallowed by a void-black radiance that bleeds from the center of the stone. The ground begins to tremble, and the headmaster falls off his chair in shock. This isn't mana. This is something else. This is the primordial void that hasn't been seen in 2 centuries. Kaito realizes he might have overestimated the strength of this modern artifact. The obelisk begins to develop massive cracks, and the dark light begins to swirl into a vortex around him. The students are screaming, the teachers are scrambling to activate their shields, but Kaito stands in the center of the chaos, his eyes now glowing with a terrifying rhythmic pulse. He looks at the crumbling stone and realizes that his journey to reclaim his throne has only just begun. And the academy, no, the entire world, is nowhere near ready for what happens when the Sage of the Abyssal Gaze finally decides to stop holding back. I expected more from the pinnacle of modern magical engineering, Kaito says, his voice cutting through the stillness like a cold blade. He turns his gaze toward the faculty balcony, his eyes glowing with a faint, rhythmic pulse of crimson and gold. 200 years, and you've forgotten how to properly contain mana. You build cages of glass and wonder why they shatter when the wind blows. Before the headmaster can even find his voice, a roar erupts from the student section. Blasphemy! It's Ryosuke Arisaka, the top-ranked student of the S-class and the heir to the Arisaka Ducode. He leaps from the stands, his body wreathed in vibrant blue lightning, the signature azure volt style that has made his family legendary. He lands in the arena, the floor cracking beneath his boots. You used a hidden artifact, Kaito. There is no way a 0-rank failure could overwhelm the obelisk. You've insulted the sanctity of this academy, and as the student representative, I'll force you to reveal your trickery. Kaito doesn't even shift his stance. He looks at Ryosuke, and for a fleeting second, a flicker of pity crosses his face. To everyone else, Ryosuke's lightning is a masterpiece of control and power. But through Kaito's eyes, the eyes of the primordial sovereign, he sees the truth. The mana foe is jagged, inefficient, and leaking like a rusted pipe. Look at me, Kaito commands. His voice isn't loud, but it vibrates in the marrow of their bones. The guards drop to their knees, not because they want to, but because their survival instincts are screaming at them to submit to the apex predator in the room. Headmaster Genjiro finally steps down from the balcony, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. Stop, please, Kaito, or whoever you truly are. We acknowledge your strength. The obelisk, the duel, it's clear. You are not a 0 rank. You are something that doesn't fit our scale. Kaito closes his eyes, and the crushing pressure vanishes instantly. The air becomes breathable again, though the hall remains a ruin. Finally, Kaito says, dusting off his shoulder, someone with a bit of sense. I didn't come here to be your student, headmaster. I came here because this academy sits atop the origin well, the source of the mana famine that is slowly killing this world. You've been bottling it up for 200 years, letting the world wither so you could have your little school of elites. The faculty members turn pale. That is a secret kept by the highest circles of the government. How could a boy who just woke up know about the origin well? I'm taking it back, Kaito continues, walking toward the center of the hall, where a hidden trapdoor leads to the foundations. And if anyone tries to stop me, they can find out exactly why they called me the Eye of the End in the age when God still walked the earth. Kaito stops and looks directly at the camera of history, his eyes gleaming with a promise of absolute upheaval. The academy was just the beginning. The world is about to realize that their greatest failure is actually their only hope and their most terrifying judge. The screen fades to black as the sound of the academy's foundation cracking echoes through the void. And that, everyone, is how you truly make an entrance. Kaito isn't just back. He's here to rewrite the rules of a world that grew soft and arrogant in his absence. From shattering the strongest artifacts to humbling the elite with nothing but a glance, the journey of the reborn sovereign has only just begun. What lies beneath the Academy? And how will the rest of the world react when they realize a living god is walking their halls? You'll have to wait and see. If you enjoyed this epic recap and want to see more stories of overpowered protagonists, legendary eyes, and worlds being turned upside down, make sure you don't miss our next update. This story is far from over, and Kaido is just getting started with his destruction of the status quo.
Don't forget to hit that like button if you think Kaido is the most badass Reborn MC of the year.
And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of this incredible journey. Your support helps us bring more of these amazing manhwa, manga, and manhwa stories to life. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one, right here on Story Panel channel. Keep reading, keep watching, and stay powerful.